So, welcome to the show, everybody. My name is John Richardson. I am back again for season 5, and with me tonight, I've got Richard H. Moon, who is the author of To Conquer Death, amongst many other things he's done in the past. Hello, Richard. How are you doing?
Hi, John. I'm doing good.
Good. So, come on then, give us a potted version of yourself.
Okay, so I'm, like I often say, I'm one of those very rare creatures in that I've been involved in the film industry, and I'm natively from Southern California. Wow. Most people involved there talk about where they were born and then they moved to SoCal, and I'm like, no, I was born here. It's weird. But yeah, for the last couple of decades, I've been in independent film, a screenwriter, a producer. I'm currently a freelance development producer and writer with Voyage Media, and I have kind of been through the trenches on indie film production. And a few years ago, I had a spec idea that was very interesting to me. But when I looked at the treatment I had written up, I realized there was no way I was ever going to get it made as a movie. It was too big. There was no way I could cut it down into a feature film. And the budget would be way beyond my means. So I said, well, maybe I should think about turning it into a book. And it had been many years since I had done much book or short story writing. Even though that's where I started. And now it's out and it's in stores, and I'm,
buy now,
fantastically, proud of it and happy with it. And, and I'm kind of feeling sort of very without firm ground under my feet, because it's like I've journeyed into a whole new world that I didn't know anything about. Yeah. Publishing and book promotion and everything is such a different beast than anything I had been used to before. So, yeah. Wow. And so here I am.
Excellent. And, as a layman, just viewing this from the outside, you've done all of this stuff in your past with film writing, screenwriting, the whole, all of that work. And then to actually turn around and say authoring a book is completely different and really strange and an achievement. I mean, that just blows my mind, because I guess from a person who's constantly entertained by people like yourself, and through their means, you think about all of that thing as being completely related, and yet it's not, is it really?
And but it's a good way of thinking about it, because in so many ways it's the same process. It's storytelling, but all of the ways that it's different is how you tell the story and all of the mechanical aspects of how a story gets across. When I started looking at screenwriting, I fell in love with the format because of all of the ways it was different than prose and short stories. It was, very active, very visual, very short. It was get as much evocative language across in as few words as possible, because the space on the page takes up time on the screen, and you can't write a novel and then be like, but this is only 10 seconds of screen time. It doesn't translate right.
Yeah.
So it was all the mechanical elements of that format were extremely interesting to me. But at the end of the day, it was still, how do I communicate the ideas and the emotions that I want to communicate to an audience? And with screenplays, it's you got to do it visually, and you have to do it, with the words. And in prose, you get to do it with language a lot more than you do in screenplays. And you do get to, I've tried this. If you try to write a book like you write a screenplay, you wind up with a book that's kind of boring to read.
Right.
It can be difficult to read. And you have to, with the book, you have to let yourself play with the time in a way that you don't in a screenplay, that you get to play with the scene setting in a way you don't with the screenplay. That you're not, constrained to, I'm getting into a scene and then I have to get out of a scene. And then there's the next setup, the next camera setup has to be, is a different thing. With this, it's if you want to flow through 3 weeks of stuff happening in, 2 paragraphs, go for it. And, if you try to hold yourself to this scene has to start here and it ends here, and then there's a different scene next, maybe that'll work. Maybe it won't. It's a whole different set of constraints and tools that you get to use. So like I said,
you're right.
Figuring out the book was tough to start with because, my initial, like skill set was very screenplay oriented. And it took me a couple of years of writing this to really find the best way to tell it in a way that wasn't a screenplay.
Oh, so it took you a couple of years.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I got the first draft of the book done in about 7 months, I want to say, of work. And then it was about 2 years following that it would get rewritten again and moved around. And I completely changed the chapter structure at one point. I added a beginning, and then I took beginnings out and, cut it down and then expanded it back out. It was this whole very long development process, but
I can imagine.
Yeah. Cause I wanted it to be a good book as itself and not, like I say, very obviously a screenwriter trying to write a book and not really pulling it off.
Okay. Did you have any help with that?
God, yeah. Yeah. I had
around.
Yeah, I have one really essential core group of fellow writers who we meet every month or so and trade pages and give each other, the hard feedback, the
stuff you want to hear, but you don't want to hear.
Well, exactly. Cause I'll say, when people are like, can I read your stuff? And I'm like, sure, but you have to tell me what doesn't work. If you just tell me how great it is, that'll make me feel good. Don't get me wrong, but it's not useful to me.
It's not constructive.
If you tell me what doesn't work, then I can be like, okay, now I see why I'm not communicating to you that idea clearly. I have this core group of readers that we've been working on each other's books for years. And I have a few other beta readers too that I pass around. And also, I've gotten feedback from, not services, but actually like contest feedback can be useful too. When you can get a complete stranger that you do not know at all, who can give at least a part of it a little read and say, this is what these are my thoughts on it. And sometimes you read those thoughts and you're like, well, this is nonsense. And I don't like any part of that. And that's an important skill to have. It's always good to be able to take notes. You have to be able to take notes, but at the same time, you have to be able to say, these are not the notes I need, and I'm going to just set them aside. I'm not going to worry about that. But feedback is essential because, like, really, when I wrote the first draft, I was like, all right, it's done. And even though I knew intellectually wasn't done, but you get that emotional state of this is done. And it's perfect.
Done. Yeah.
It's like, no, it isn't. It's not. And you have to set it aside for a little bit. Have somebody else's brain, look at it and tell you what's wrong.
Okay.
So
to give the audience some idea of what we're talking about, then your book is entitled To Conquer Death.
Yes.
And it takes place, is it after or during the fall of the late Bronze Age?
So it's actually right at the beginning of what's called the Bronze Age collapse, which is a historical event that happened around 1200 BC. Technically, the book's set around 1190, but I'm also playing with the time of certain things quite a bit. It's historical fantasy. It's not straight up history. And a big reason why is because the Bronze Age collapse is like one of our big historical mysteries in a lot of ways. It was this 30-year period where, because of a bunch of invasions and wars and droughts and climate events, basically all of the major civilizations of the Bronze Age around the Mediterranean, they all collapsed within the space of 30 years. And all of them had been there for centuries upon centuries at that point. So that's the Mycenaean Greeks, the Hittites, the Assyrian Empire, Babylon, all of them either severely contracted or completely collapsed, except for ancient Egypt, which managed to hold off collapse for another generation or so before it went through its own problems.
It went through, yeah.
And
what a fascinating period that must have been as well.
Yeah. And the trick is we don't know a ton about it. We have a few written records from Egypt. We have some archaeological evidence from other places, but who exactly these waves of invaders were, we don't know. Where they came from, we don't know. Why they were moving, we don't know. If the things that the Egyptians are talking about defeating were the reason that the Greeks were destroyed, we don't know. We just know that the palace is burned. And then, populations changed after that. Yeah. So that lack of real
concrete knowledge.
Concrete written knowledge is fascinating to me because, of course, there's so many story possibilities in there.
And plenty of gaps.
Oh, yeah. Immediately when I was first really getting deep into reading about it, I thought, well, okay, an obvious question is maybe these invasions weren't invasions so much as they were migrations, which is one of the big theories too. But maybe they weren't even so much migrations as we just need to move somewhere as they were refugee movement, that there were people fleeing from something worse that was coming. And, in the actual history, it's climate change, drought, that sort of thing causes these things. But the way my brain works, I was like, what if there's something much worse in the forest that's chasing them out? And then, and of course the story ideas start flowing from there. So the book is about two Egyptian brothers who defeat one of these invasions. And in capturing a woman from barbarian Europe, they learned that this invasion they're not invaders, that they're refugees, and they've been fleeing from something very dark that's coming up behind them. And so the two brothers and the barbarian woman and another barbarian woman get tasked by the pharaoh to go back along the refugee route to find what is happening, what's causing these destructions, what is this darkness that's been forcing these people to flee. So they wind up going on a little trip up to Crete and then Greece and encountering horrors that are beyond their imagination in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Wow, that sounds absolutely fascinating. So the whole idea of the world building in it then is you relied quite heavily on the sort of historical data that we do have, I would imagine.
Oh, yeah.
And then you've got to make your premise sort of watertight, haven't you, really? You've got to stress test it in some way. Did you do that? I would imagine you did.
Yeah. And I mean, there was a lot of research that went into it because I hold a special place in my heart for the people who build their worlds entirely out of essentially whole cloth, because that's amazing to me and I could never do it.
That's the top-down approach, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And this, I was like,
did all of that background stuff. Yeah.
Well, and people have said it's amazing how much detail you got. And it's like, well, I was cheating. I have a lot of research. I have a lot of books that I read that told me what life was like in ancient Egypt, in the New Kingdom of Egypt, and what, the palaces in Crete, the cities in Crete were like, and what, Mycenaean Greece was like. And so a lot of my world building got to be built on those firm, archaeological bases that helped me out. But at the same time, it was like the trick was finding the ways of making those things accessible to modern readers without making them just straight up modern.
So what did you do then? How did you do that? Or
a lot of times it was, the easiest thing was the whole thing's written in very obvious modern colloquial English.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want it to sound like Homer, really, and very
sheets of papyrus.
Yeah, and the stilted language, because again, one of my favorite authors is Patrick O'Brian, and that guy was amazing for writing his books in the style of the time they're set in, and they're wonderful to read, but they're also not the way my brain works. And I was like, if I read an ancient a story set in ancient Egypt that sounds like the fables we actually have from Egypt, like the story of Senu and the two brothers, it would come off as stilted and odd because that's the way the language and the translations works. So I start with writing everything in modern English. Everyone's speaking in modern English, but I then had to do a lot of work to make sure that while the words were in English, the colloquialisms weren't. That I wasn't leaning on, especially phrasing and idiom that I'm used to in my life. Like, there's only a couple places where I sort of broke that rule and let someone have a thought process that sounds very modern, but it's very purposeful within that scene. And but there are multiple times when I would construct a sentence and I'd be like, okay, but I can't use that word because I know too much about how Latin that word is and why in English we use that word because it comes from liturgical Latin in the Middle Ages, and this is 2,000 years before that. So like,
wow, that's an interesting.
Yeah. So like the simplest idea is I can't have someone say, Platonic ideal because this is 800 years before Plato would come up with that idea. So
break the immersion.
It's like I want to give the concept that they're trying to get across without using the phrasing that, again, like comes from 300, 600, 1,000 years later.
1,000 years after.
2,000 years later.
Yeah.
So it was tough. But at the same time, I got pushed back a couple times because the European character, Doria, she's essentially Proto-Indo-European. A lot of her language is invented by me, but based on Proto-Indo-European phrasing. But she's also, she can be vulgar. And a lot of there are times when she uses some language that is, not perhaps fit for more delicate ears. And I got a little pushback where like, isn't this a very modern word? And I'm like, the word is, but at the same time, the thought is not, because humans have been talking about, scatological matters for our entire existence. Oh my God, I'm blanking on the other special word, but they talk about sex. They talk about, all these things that are very common to human throughout history.
Yeah.
Tribes people back in, 3,000 years ago were not like, I don't understand what words could we possibly use to describe what those two animals are doing. No, they have a word for it.
I'm sure they do.
And that's the reason we have a word for it too. It comes down.
Yeah. Brilliant. Wow. That's absolutely fascinating. So your main world building challenge then was the language used with your characters to describe their actions, relationships with each other, and their surroundings, I guess. So just to let you know what I'm currently doing, I'm working on a little short story at the moment. Not in my notebook, though. I've got plenty of notes on it. And it's based on really Celtic mythology. That's what it's based on. And now my problem is I will fall very much into the sort of shadow world trap where it takes place in this present time, for example, but the method of going from their world to our world needs to have like a veil, if you like, between the worlds. And it's been done about 1 million times before, this type of thing. And I didn't want to fall into any sort of traps where I just sound like anyone else who's done the similar sort of thing. So I've got to construct rules where, the thinning of the veil can only happen at certain locations or when certain conditions are set. And they've got to be believable according to Celtic tradition and all of that sort of stuff. Now that is a challenge because I'm not highly educated in that area, but you've got to do your research, right?
Oh yeah.
So so that's my main challenge at the moment. It's my aspect of the world building is the building in of this new world with our existing world, right? But what you've done is you've created something based on the historic world, on what it could have been like, but based on a lot of factual data. So, and your language has been the main barrier so far, isn't it? So, have there been any other barriers as well? Have you thought about things that are perhaps,
a lot of it is again dealing with the ways that the everyday life was both similar and very different than what we're extremely used to, and the finding the little details that again can take a reader and say this is the world you're in, that are then it's almost like I said, finding the familiar details that can bring them in, and then the being clear on the stuff that's not the same. So a weird example is at one point they actually are sailing across the Mediterranean, which you say those words and we all get certain images in our head of what that's like, except that this is long before caravels and, galleons. These are not, and especially even the Egyptians didn't have the triremes and quadremes that we think of when we talk about Athens and Sparta in the ancient world fighting, and Rome and Carthage and all that. No. They had boats that were designed to be on a river. That's kind of all they cared about. They didn't care about going on the ocean. So finding all of the making sure that all of the details of how they would cross that ocean were accurate to the time, but also describable to a reader was a real challenge. And the same sort of thing, the religious aspects were again a challenge to make familiar, but also make accurate and set them in the world.
Okay, so I know they always say never discuss politics or religion or anything like that. So tell us a bit about religion then. Can you go off on a tangent on that?
Yeah, because one of the big things that I got to explore with the book is that the Egyptian religion, we usually think about it as, mummification being this huge thing, which it was. Yeah. But the reasons for mummification being a huge thing in Egyptian religion were very important and played with in or something for me to play with in terms of how does a people who think, your body has to be prepared and, protected so that you can, live on in the afterlife. And there's all these, very technical details about how your soul, the pieces of your soul interact with your body in the afterlife. How are all those things dealt with when you see someone who's dead sit up and, try to kill you? Then there's, it's a very different mindset and worldview than we're used to. Cause of course we all know, George Romero movies. We're used to zombies and a zombie apocalypse. We've all seen The Walking Dead. So
The Walking Dead,
yeah. So that was a kind of a fun challenge of presenting a zombie apocalypse that the modern reader is oh, that's a zombie apocalypse. I know what that is. But the characters in it have no grounding for that.
And it's all intermixed with their religion as well.
Yeah, so, exactly. That
at one point, totally horrifying, really.
Yeah, and at one point, there's several points actually where different priests are okay, the thing you just described can't happen. That does not happen. The world beyond is here. The world of the living is here, and they don't interact in that way. So what you're telling me cannot happen. And at the same time, there's a head in the box that's trying to chew its way out. That's very clearly dead. So that having that interaction of, the religious thought bumping up against the reality, while also the reality being itself based on certain religious aspects that they're not familiar with, because there are, of course, I one of the things I try to do with this narrative is not suggest that like the Egyptian religion is the one true religion or anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's true for the Egyptians. It's different for, the people on Crete. It's different for the barbarians from Europe. They have their own deals, and they're all true. Like all the myths are true in some way. All the traditions are true in some way.
Mm-hmm.
So when they, smash together, that's where, some tension and conflict comes in. That can be fun. And then on another level, I had to deal with, and this is almost more of a language thing too. I wanted to deal with the fact that so much of what we know of Egypt and its religion comes to us through Greece. And so that, that winds up being a lot of translations. So one of the little simple things as I was wrestled with is, where do I use the Greek version of a god's name versus the actual Egyptian version of a god's name? And usually I defaulted to the Egyptian one. But then that leads to fun things like the name Thoth, that is, if you've studied Egyptian religion at all, you've encountered Thoth, of course.
He's in the Book of Dead, isn't it? Of the Dead,
and he's the scribe of the god. Right. That name doesn't appear in the book at all because the Egyptian term is more like Jethuthi, and so it's spelled Jethuthi. And so I'm expecting there'll be a few people who are like, "Who is this god I've never encountered?" Which is why I've got a bit in the back to explain, this is who these people are. But yeah.
Gosh, sounds very complex, Richard, I've got to say. I think I'll go away with my little short story now and just weep in a corner.
No. It's like, I'm trying to be a lot more simple with the next thing I'm writing too. But at the same time, it's what details you think are important to the story you're trying to tell. That
drive the story forward, hasn't it? So that's what you're putting in there.
Yeah.
So you've mentioned the undead.
Mm-hmm.
So can you give us a little sort of synopsis?
Well, yes. As I said, you've
got a bunch of characters.
Yeah, the two brothers and the two Europeans have to go back along the route, and they find that what's actively destroying a lot of those civilizations is a plague of the undead, that people are rising up from their graves, becoming large zombie hordes, and just absolutely destroying every city they come across, and every village. And as they journey further to the north, where all these things seem to be coming from, they learn more about how this is like the culmination of a darkness that's been chasing Doria, one of the barbarian women, her whole life. That her tribe has built a lot of its traditions on avoiding these problems. And there's a scene in the very beginning of the book when Doria is a young girl and her mother has just died, and they're preparing her funeral pyre because it's very important that they get her cremated and into an urn and buried in the ground as fast as they can before a certain amount of time happens, because they are used to, at this point, if you don't burn the dead, if you don't bring fire for the dead, then they might come back wrong. They might, be one of the things that's lurking out in the darkness between the trees, that'll snatch your children away, that will force you away from the good hunting grounds. And for her whole life, it's been this low-key traumatic terror. And just recently, it's started ramping up. And they do actually wind up finding the cause behind it. And it is essentially, I'll be, I'm not giving away spoilers or anything.
No.
But it's one guy who has gone through his own trauma, and this is how he's acting out, and dealing with, or failing to deal with, his own traumatic experience. And so,
sounds absolutely fascinating.
Yeah. On a certain level, I've always been fascinated with the idea of, what if your traditional zombie apocalypse but on some level, the zombies all really hated you in particular, and they're coming for you.
For
But
you,
there's the personal element behind it. And so this kind of does lean into that a bit.
There's plenty of opportunity for conflict going on there as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Oh, that sounds absolutely amazing. So, to conquer death, how long did it take you again? About 7 months to write the whole thing, and then
that was the first draft, and then 2-ish years to get it into what felt like a good position to actually send it out. And then I was querying agents primarily for about a year, and then at the beginning of this year, after going through a bit of a traumatic event myself that we can talk about if you want to, but just to, I live in Altadena, which might not be familiar to a lot of people, but it was in last January, the Eaton fire tore through the town.
Did mention this, yes.
Yeah. But so after that, and kind of getting my feet back under me, I wound up looking at, I was thinking about self-publishing for a variety of reasons, and wound up actually meeting and hooking up with, investigating a few different hybrid publishers, which are basically, the old term was vanity press, but it's a self-publishing except with a team behind you. Atmosphere Press, my publisher, has been tremendous in getting. They put together the team that did the cover art and put everything together, and actually, it was a couple months of development edit and line edit on the book as well. Before we even got to that stage, and now we're doing publicity and getting reviews done. So they've just been a tremendous partner on this. And
brilliant. Yeah, because the risk of going sort of like full self-publishing is the amount of work you've got to do to self-advertise, I suppose, as well as anything else.
Well, it's not even self-advertising, which is a big thing, and I also have to do a lot of myself now. But it was what scared me was the thought of, like, I don't know cover artists, so where am I going to find a cover artist? I need actual, like, the professional editing on it, because I feel I'm a pretty good editor, but it's also my own stuff, and so I'm too close to it. I need somebody outside of my head to really dive into it. Where am I going to find that? Where am I going to find someone to actually do the formatting? Because maybe I can do the formatting, but I'm coming at it like an amateur that I've never done. And on that end, it was very much like independent film production, in that, yes, you can do all the parts yourself, and it'll cost less money.
Should you as well?
Yeah. But because I've always been like, I know my skill set, and I know what's outside of my skill set. I don't need to be doing key art. I'm not a good artist. I've
looked at some people who've self-published in the past, and I've seen you mentioned the cover art. Honestly, some of it is shocking. I'm no expert myself, but just as a consumer, just looking at it, I'm thinking, oh my goodness. I mean, nowadays you can identify immediately, well, that's AI. That's AI used there, because it's got telltale signs even on imagery. And
well, and it's been fascinating, especially as, like, the AI imagery has been coming more and more, where it's like, well, this will get me over that problem of I can't draw well. And it's like, man, the problem wasn't that you couldn't draw well. The problem was that you don't care that much about it.
That's interesting.
Not drawing well was a symptom of that part, and it's still very clear that you don't care about this cover. Because it still looks bad, even though it's
exactly. So if you want something good, you reach for it, don't you? So did you? I know that you didn't go for the full sort of book publisher thing, and you went for this sort of hybrid type arrangement. But did you go for the full publishing?
I had thought about it, and I had made some initial inquiries, but I was also very, like, trepidatious about going that traditional publishing route.
Right.
I mean, simply because on one aspect, it's extremely hard to get in. You can Tor gets thousands of submissions from agent and authors, and right now I don't have an agent. I used to years ago, but unfortunately, he passed with COVID, and I just haven't wanted to deal with getting an agent for a while. But it's much harder to get in, and also then there are huge downsides to it in that you're not in control of a lot of aspects of how the book is put together and how it's sent out. So you might get an advance, and the advance might be pretty nice, but then you're not earning a dime on that book until after that advance pays out.
Yeah.
And I'm again familiar enough with odd accounting practices in the film world that I was, I've had film projects that are never going to make a dime of money for me because there's all sorts of expenses that can be added to it on the back end. So again, I was thinking about it. And of course, if a big publisher had shown up at my door and offered me a check, I probably would have taken it, 100%. But at the same time, I was like, I would prefer this to get out on a smaller scale and still be something that I'm 100% proud of and engaged with. And, it's not even the control, it's more the consent that I'm this is the cover I want.
That's an interesting differentiation there.
Yeah.
Not control, it's consent. Yeah.
Yeah. So, because again, I don't know how to, they asked me, what do you want in your cover? And I was like, I have vague ideas. I would want to see what a good artist puts together, and I'll pay for that. And that's what I got. I got a great artist, Kevin Stone. His finished product blew me away. With the perfection of how it encapsulated, presenting the book. And would a traditional publisher have given me a cover that was quite that perfect? I don't know. But I do know that at the end of the day, it would have been their choice, not mine.
Right. Yeah. So talking of choices and control then, so basically you were talking about edits being made to the book and stuff like this. Do you have any, I take it that you've got to agree with the edits, but were there any sort of edits you kind of thought, I'm not too sure about, I'm not too sure I want to make this edit? Or
there were not so much in the development stage, but in the line edit stage, there were style disagreements that went back and forth a few times. A lot of them small, a few of them larger, and we always managed to come to a place where I was kind of happy with the result. But there were a few places where I was like, all right, fine, that is actually probably the better way of doing it. But then there were other things where I'm like, no, I know what your style guide says. This is what I want. This is the reason I want it. Harder in some ways were the stuff before the publisher got involved, when, I had scenes that I really loved, and then it was that really hard admittance that no, this kills the pacing. I got to take it out. I got to remove it because the pacing's just dying here as much as I love this scene. But now I have those scenes that's maybe there'll be extras that I'll publish on the website at some point. I don't know.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Because, you do get quite attached, don't you, to your stories? And it's really difficult because you find that you want to say a particular thing, and if it doesn't quite match the beat, you've got to make that hard decision. And I'm at the stage now, being obviously a complete amateur. I'm at the stage where I'm just sort of you know what? I'm okay with missing the beat a little bit right now, until someone else will tell me,
Well, and when you get it, I fully encourage writing everything that occurs to you, because you can always cut it out later. You know, if you find pacing is a problem, that's for later you. Right now, you is like first draft, get the ideas out, figure out how
the ideas out, mesh it together.
Yeah, even with structure, you can figure out structure later if it's not going everywhere. That being said, I definitely have read books from very successful authors where you get the section where you're like, oh, this was the thing that he was really angry about and wanted to get into a book, because he goes on at length about it, and it has nothing to do with the plot. Like,
I've read some books like that as well.
Yeah. Well, I always love that image that goes around online of the title card from I think it was an episode of Police Squad, where the title of the episode was, episode 6, The Writer's Barely Disguised Fetish. It's like, yeah.
Oh, brilliant. So what's next on your big plan then? So you've got To Conquer Death. It's just out, isn't it? It's just out.
Yeah. It came out in November of 2025. And now I'm this all of 2026 right now is me setting up.
Let's hope it makes you loads of money.
Well, I keep telling myself it's not about the money. It's about getting the story out. And I'm like, sure. And that's why I marked down how many copies I sold at the last convention. Sure. But that's my 2026 is going to conventions and conferences and, getting on the
that's
panels.
Super exciting. Will they help with expenses on that, or is that something you're going to fork out yourself?
Oh no, that's myself. There's no book tour on this one, other than what I'm doing myself. But luckily I've got a lot of side resources that help me balance that out. Although, the accounting, I don't get to know how the online sales are doing until like the end of January, when I get my first royalty statement.
Oh, wow.
But I'm they're really good, and I keep looking at like the rankings here and there. With even though my wife tells me don't look at those. I'm like, I know, but it's exciting.
But
yeah. But whether or not I wind up making money on this or losing money overall, it'll be fine. It'll even out. It's
an achievement, though, isn't it? As well,
yeah.
It's an achievement. It's a massive achievement. I
think
just incredible.
I'm more excited about this book coming out than I was the first movie I got into a movie theater.
Really?
And to be fair, the movie was a lot smaller in terms of being like.
Do you want to go into that? Getting distributed? Do you want to mention that?
It was called Driving by Braille. It's from a while ago. Although it starred Tammin Sursok and Ryan Eggold, who's out and about and big right now, and a great guy. But yeah, it got out and about, and it was like I was very proud of it at the time. But this, for some reason, is more exciting. I'm like more. I feel like a bigger achievement, which is strange on a lot of levels, because it's
it's a book.
It's a book. It's a book.
Yeah.
Which is I've been reading books since I was a little kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do think you're right. I think a book is such a different level of achievement. But mind you, I've never produced any films, so what do I know? But it's a book's amazing.
Just as exhausted at the end of the process in either case.
Oh, that's fantastic. So you got your book tour next year. You're waiting for your January sale numbers as well. So you've got Christmas to look forward to as well.
We'll see.
Hopefully we'll get some traction there. So have you got anything else to add about To Conquer Death and your experience as an author on that book?
I would say a little bit of advice that I would pass on to other writers that writing this has taught me is kind of like I said earlier, go ahead, whatever you want to put in, you'll figure out whether or not it fits later. But also to everyone out there who ever has a period where you're writing and you get to a certain point and you're stuck and you can't, find that way through. I don't technically believe that writer's block is a thing. It's actually just that you haven't figured out, you haven't made a choice that maybe you don't even consciously realize you need to make.
Right.
And so whenever you're feeling stuck, whenever you're feeling like, I don't know what comes next, and that means I'm a bad writer, you just need to get away from that keyboard for a while. You need to go do other things, because if you've already gotten to a point where you're sitting down and you're writing something, a short story, a novelette, whatever it is, a full novel, that means you on some level know what that story is. You know what story you want to tell. And there's always the difficult process is getting it from, the in your head, the fuzzy cloud shaped, non-concrete thing that's in your head into a concrete form on the page. And more often than not, the secret to that is not sitting at the keyboard berating yourself that I have to get this next thing done. It's getting up, going away from that keyboard, doing anything else and letting your brain figure it out for you. Listen to some music, go for a walk, do the dishes.
I call it my secondary processor. So the primary one's your day-to-day thing. You're thinking about things, you're consciously thinking about things. And then, if you've got a problem, you just shunt it off to the back, and then get on with something. And then a few days later, pop. Yep. Usually, you get a solution.
I've almost industrialized the process at this point where I'll get to an end of a section and I'm like, all right, the next section's coming up. I need to go for a jog. I need to go take the dogs for a walk, and I've got this particular playlist to put on, and inevitably, 15 minutes in, all of a sudden I go, oh, it's supposed to go like that.
Yeah.
Oh, it's supposed to.
And you reach immediately for your notepad.
Phone. I'm like, let me write myself an email real quick. Yeah. Got to have the notepad.
Yeah. Oh my God. Some of my notes I just can't read them, but I suppose it defeats the object of it.
Sometimes my notes look like I've described them as looking like the diary entries of a crazy person. Because they're for me, and I know what they mean. But and at least once in this last couple of weeks, I realized I had forgotten to bring a notebook with me, and I had forgotten my phone at home, and I was several hours away from not several hours, but an hour away from home, and I did not have my phone, and I did not have my notepads, and I was like, oh no, all this stuff has occurred to me while I was out walking. I have no way to write it down. I got back to my car, and luckily I had a receipt and a pen. I had a bag of pens in my car, and so I wound up writing notes on the receipt.
On the back of the receipt.
Yeah. And I was like, okay. And my wife, who was doing something that's why I was out, came and saw me sitting in the passenger seat just scribbling on this receipt. And she's like, yeah, that's about right. That's normal.
Yeah, that's normal.
Yeah.
They always say with the roll of the eyes. Brilliant, though. Excellent. It's a good tip. Always make sure you've got something to write with.
Yeah, always make sure you get something to write with. Yeah, and get away from the keyboard.
Yeah. Brilliant. Super. Well, thanks very much for your time, Richard. It's been absolutely fascinating having you on. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I think we've got about 49, 50 minutes of this, so that's pretty good. So, yeah. So
thank you very much for having me, John. This has been tremendous.
Thank you for showing up.
Punctuality. That's the other bit of advice. Be punctual. Be on time.
Punctual. Yeah.
Actually go to the meetings. Yeah. I actually have had to give that advice to certain people who are like, how do I get into filmmaking? How do I do this, that, and the other thing? I'm like, well, you got to go to the meeting, man. You can't buzz out of the meeting. I know you've been like, I'm scared and I don't want to go, and you don't go. It's like, nope, you've got to be there.
You got to talk.
Yep.
Got to be there. You got to be in it to win it, as they say.
Very much. Very much.
All right. Thanks very much, then. That's wonderful having you on. That's Richard.
Thank you very much.
And To Conquer Death. Available where?
Everywhere. You can get it on Amazon. You can go to bookshop.org. I highly recommend going to your local bookstore and asking them to order it for you, because they will. It's through Ingram, so they can get to it. Failing all that, go to your library. If they don't have it, you can ask them to order it. And libraries are tremendous and wonderful. So absolutely, go to your library, have them order it.
Okay. Do you have a website at all, Rich?
Yes, I do. You can find all this at richardmoonbooks.com.
Brilliant.
Nice and simple.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Get John a coffee using coffee. It'd be dead lush, man. Just go to richardsonsrubicon.com and click on the big coffee thingy. Cheers, Petal.